Amy Rodriguez checked the scanner one more time. The small blip on her screen had been there for 20 minutes now. It was getting closer to her ship, the UES Falcon. She had been out here in deep space for 3 weeks, looking for new planets that humans could live on. Her job was simple: find good worlds and report back to Earth. The Falcon was not a big ship. It only had room for 12 people. Amy was the commander, and she had 11 crew members with her. They were all good people. Some were scientists, some were pilots, and some were engineers. They trusted her to keep them safe. Amy pressed a button on her chair. "All hands to stations," she said into the microphone. "We have something coming our way." Her crew moved quickly. They had been together for 2 years now. They knew what to do without being told twice. Jake Collins sat at the weapons station. Mary Johnson took her place at the engines. Dr. Paul Wright went to his medical station. The thing on the scanner was moving very fast, too fast for any ship that humans had ever built. Amy felt her heart beat faster. This was not good news. "Commander," said Jake from his station, "that ship is huge, much bigger than us." Amy looked at the main screen. The ship that appeared there made her mouth fall open. It was black and covered in sharp edges. It looked like it was made for war. Red lights blinked along its sides. The ship was at least 10 times bigger than the Falcon. "Try to talk to them," Amy said to Lisa Park at the communications station. Lisa pressed buttons and spoke into her headset. "Unknown vessel, this is the UES Falcon. Please respond." Nothing came back. The alien ship kept getting closer. "Maybe they are friendly," said Dr. Wright, but his voice showed he did not believe his own words. Amy watched the big ship move toward them. She had a bad feeling about this. Earth had never met aliens before. She was about to be the first human to make contact. She hoped it would go well. Suddenly, the alien ship shot a beam of blue light at the Falcon. The beam hit their ship and everything went dark for a second. Then emergency lights came on. "They hit us with some kind of weapon," said Mary from the engine station. "But I do not think they want to destroy us. Our ship is still working." "Why? Would they attack us but not destroy us?" asked Jake. Amy thought about this. Maybe the aliens wanted to capture them alive. This was even worse news than being destroyed. The blue beam hit them again. This time, Amy felt something strange in her head. It was like someone was pushing on her brain from the inside. She heard her crew members make sounds of pain around her. "What is happening?" she said, but her voice sounded far away. She looked around the bridge. One by one, her crew members were falling down. Jake fell forward onto his station. Mary dropped to the floor. Dr. Wright collapsed in his chair. They were not dead, but they were not awake either. Amy felt the strange pushing in her head get stronger. The pain was very bad. She wanted to fall down like the others, but something was wrong. She was still standing. She was still awake. The pain got worse and worse. Amy grabbed her head with both hands. She wanted to scream, but she did not fall down. She did not go to sleep like her crew. She heard a loud noise. Metal was being cut somewhere on her ship. The aliens were coming aboard. Amy tried to wake up Jake. She shook him, but he would not open his eyes. She tried Mary and Dr. Wright. Nothing worked. They were breathing, but they would not wake up. Heavy footsteps came down the hallway toward the bridge. Amy looked around for a weapon. She found a small laser pistol in the emergency box. Her hands were shaking as she held it. The bridge door opened with a loud hiss. 3 aliens walked in. Amy had never seen anything like them before. They were taller than humans, maybe 7 feet tall. Their skin was gray and looked like leather. They had 4 arms and red eyes that glowed in the dark. Sharp teeth filled their mouths. They wore black armor that covered most of their bodies. The alien in front held a strange weapon. It was the size of a rifle but shaped differently than any human weapon. Blue light came from the end of it. Amy pointed her laser pistol at them. "Stay back," she said. The aliens looked at each other. They seemed surprised that she was still awake. One of them said something in a language that sounded like rocks grinding together. The one with the weapon pointed it at Amy. Blue light shot. out and hit her in the chest. The pain in her head became much worse. She fell to her knees but did not go to sleep. The aliens made more grinding sounds. They seemed very interested in her now. Amy tried to shoot her laser pistol, but her hands would not work right. The pain was too strong. She dropped the weapon and fell forward, but she was still awake. More aliens came onto the bridge. They picked up her sleeping crew members and carried them away. Two of the big aliens grabbed Amy by her arms and lifted her up. She tried to fight them, but the pain in her head made everything hard to do. They carried her through the hallways of her ship and onto their big black vessel. The inside of the alien ship was dark and cold. Red lights along the walls made everything look like it was covered in blood. The aliens carried her through many corridors until they reached a small room. They threw her inside and closed the door. Amy heard it lock with a loud click. The room was very small, like a prison cell. There was only a metal bed and a small toilet. No windows. The walls were made of some kind of black metal. Amy sat on the bed and held her head. The pain was getting a little better, but it was still there. She wondered why she had not gone to sleep like her crew. Something was different about her. She could hear the alien ship's engines starting up. They were taking her somewhere. She did not know where they were going or what they wanted with her and her crew. Amy had read stories about aliens taking humans for experiments. She hoped that was not what was happening to her. But she was afraid it was. The ship started moving. Amy felt it turn and speed up. They were leaving the area where her ship had been. Soon Earth would wonder why the Falcon had not reported back. Amy lay down on the metal bed and closed her eyes. She needed to rest and think. She had to find a way to save her crew and get back to Earth. But first, she had to figure out why the alien weapon had not worked on her like it had worked on everyone else. She had a feeling this was just the beginning of something very bad. Amy woke up when her cell door opened with a loud bang. She did not know how long she had been sleeping. There were no windows in her prison, so she could not tell if it was day or night. Not that day and night meant anything in space. Two large aliens walked into her cell. They were the same kind she had seen before. Tall, gray skin, 4 arms, and glowing red eyes. They wore the same black armor. One of them held the strange blue weapon. "Come," said one of the aliens. Its voice sounded like rocks being crushed together. Amy was surprised it could speak English. She stood up slowly. Her head still hurt from whatever their weapon did to her. The aliens grabbed her arms and walked her out of the cell. The hallways of the alien ship were long and dark. Red lights ran along the walls and ceiling. Amy tried to remember the path they were taking, but there were so many turns and corridors that she got lost quickly. They passed other aliens working at stations along the walls. All of them stopped to look at her as she walked by. She could see interest in their red eyes. Some of them made grinding sounds to each other that might have been talking. Finally, they reached a large room with bright white lights. It hurt Amy's eyes after being in the dark for so long. The room was filled with strange machines and computers. In the center was a metal chair with straps and wires attached to it. Another alien was waiting for them. This one was different from the others. It was shorter and its skin was lighter gray. It wore a long coat instead of armor. When it looked at Amy, its red eyes seemed more intelligent than the soldiers. "I am Mind Seeker Korath," it said in better English than the soldiers. "You will sit in the chair." Amy shook her head. "I will not." The soldiers pointed their weapons at her. Amy knew she had no choice. She walked to the chair and sat down. The soldiers strapped her arms and legs so she could not move. Korath walked around her, looking at her like she was an interesting bug. "You are human," it said. "We have been watching your kind for some time. You are new to space travel. Your weapons are weak. Your ships are slow." "Then why did you capture us?" Amy asked. "To learn about you before we take your worlds," Korath said simply. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your system will be the 18th. Amy felt cold fear in her stomach. "You want to invade Earth?" "Of course. Your world has good air and water. Your people will make useful slaves for those who survive the conquest. Korath picked up a small device from a nearby table. It looked like the blue weapons, but smaller. But first, we must understand why our neural disruptor does not work on you like it works on other species. Neural disruptor? The weapon that makes the mind sleep. It has never failed before. We have used it to capture millions of beings from dozens of different worlds. But you stayed awake. This is very interesting. Korath pointed the small device at Amy's head. Blue light shot out and the pain came back. It was like someone driving nails into her brain. She screamed and pulled against the straps, but she did not go to sleep. Fascinating, Korath said. The pain is clearly working. Your neural pathways are being disrupted. But your consciousness remains active. This should not be possible. The pain stopped and Amy gasped for air. Maybe your weapon is broken, she said. Korath made a sound that might have been laughing. We tested it on your crew members while you slept. It works perfectly on them. They sleep for exactly 4 hours and then wake up with no memory of the pain. But you are different. Amy thought about her crew. Were they okay? Were they in cells? Like hers? Where are my people? She demanded. They are safe, for now. They are being studied just as you are, but they are not as interesting as you. They react to our weapons normally. Korath walked to a computer and pressed several buttons. Pictures appeared on a screen, images of humans and other alien species. Amy could see that the other aliens all looked different from each other, but they were all clearly not human. These are some of the species we have conquered, Korath explained. The Zelani from the Proxima system, the Thurok from Wolf 359, the crystal beings of Kepler 452b. All of them fell to our neural disruptors within days of first contact. Amy looked at the pictures. Each species looked sad and defeated. Many wore collars around their necks. We study each species before conquest, Korath continued. We learn their weaknesses, their fears, how their minds work. Then we use this knowledge to break their will to fight. It is very efficient. You are monsters, Amy said. We are strong. Strength is all that matters in the universe. The weak exist to serve the strong. This is the natural order. Korath pressed more buttons and new images appeared. These showed Forthak worlds with cities full of slave species working in mines and factories. Your people will join them soon. Earth has resources we need. Your population will provide useful workers. Those who resist will be eliminated. Amy felt anger growing inside her. We will fight you. Humans do not give up easily. All species say this at first. But when their leaders see our power, they surrender quickly. Your neural disruptor immunity is interesting, but it will not save your world. You are only one person. Korath picked up the small weapon again. Let us continue the experiment. I want to understand how your brain is different. The blue light hit Amy again, and the pain returned. This time it lasted longer. She bit her tongue to keep from screaming. She would not give this alien the satisfaction of hearing her pain. When it stopped, Korath looked disappointed. You are building up resistance. Each time I use the disruptor, it affects you less. This is unprecedented. Amy had noticed this, too. The first time the weapon hit her on her ship, the pain had been unbearable. Now it still hurt badly, but she could think through it better. How is this possible? Korath muttered, looking at his computer readings. Maybe humans are stronger than you think, Amy said. Impossible. We have studied your species for months. Your brains are similar to 12 other species we have conquered. The neural disruptor should work perfectly. But Amy could see doubt in the alien's red eyes. For the first time, the Vorthak had found something they did not understand. Korath called to the soldiers in their grinding language. They unstrapped Amy from the chair and grabbed her arms. Take her back to her cell, Korath said in English. I need to study these readings more carefully. As they walked back through the dark corridors, Amy thought about what she had learned. The Vorthak had conquered many worlds using their neural disruptor weapon. They had been watching Earth and planning to invade. But something about her was different. Something that made their weapon not work properly. She had to find a way to escape and warn Earth. But first, She needed to understand why she was immune to their weapon. If she could figure that out, maybe she could find a way to help her crew and her people back home. The aliens threw her back into her cell and locked the door. Amy sat on the metal bed and tried to think. She had always been different from other people in small ways. Her reflexes were faster. Her mind worked differently, but she had never known why. Now her differences might be the key to saving humanity. She just had to figure out how to use them. Amy had been in the cell for what felt like days when they came for her again. This time there were 3 soldiers instead of 2. They seemed more careful around her now, keeping their weapons pointed at her even though she was not fighting them. They took her to a different room this time. It was bigger than the last one with more machines and screens. Mindseeker Korath was there, along with 2 other aliens that looked like scientists. They wore the same long coats and had many tools attached to their belts. "Sit," Korath commanded, pointing to the metal chair. Amy sat down but crossed her arms. "I want to see my crew." "You are not in a position to make demands," Korath said. But after a moment he pressed a button on a control panel. A large screen came down from the ceiling. Amy could see a room with several beds in it. Her crew members were lying on the beds. They looked pale and weak, but they were alive. Jake Collins was sitting up talking to Dr. Wright. Mary Johnson was eating something from a bowl. "They are being fed and cared for," Korath said. "We need them healthy for our experiments, but their usefulness is limited. You, however, continue to surprise us." One of the other scientists approached Amy with a small device. It looked like a medical scanner that human doctors might use. "This is bioanalyst Zeth," Korath explained. "He will examine your brain structure while I continue testing your resistance to neural disruption." The scientist named Zeth began moving, the scanner around Amy's head. She could hear it making soft beeping sounds. Numbers and pictures appeared on nearby screens. "Fascinating," Zeth said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Her neural pathways are arranged differently than standard human patterns. Look at these connections in the frontal cortex." Korath studied the screen. "I see. The electrical patterns are creating natural interference with our disruptor frequency, but this should not provide complete immunity." "It is not complete immunity," Zeth observed. "See how her pain responses activate normally? The disruptor is affecting her nervous system, but the consciousness centers remain active despite the disruption." Amy listened carefully to everything they said. She was learning about her own condition while they studied her. The neural disruptor worked by disrupting electrical signals in the brain, but her brain was wired differently than normal, which gave her some protection. Korath picked up his small weapon. "Let us test the limits of this resistance." The blue light hit Amy, and the familiar pain started, but this time she paid attention to exactly what was happening. The pain was real, but her ability to think was not completely stopped. She could still observe and remember. "Increase the power," Korath told one of his assistants. The pain got much worse. Amy gritted her teeth and held onto the arms of the chair, but she was still awake and aware. "Remarkable," said Zeth. "At this power level, any other species would be unconscious for hours. She is experiencing full neural disruption but maintaining consciousness." Korath turned off the weapon and walked around Amy's chair. "In all our conquests, we have never encountered this. The neural disruptor is the foundation of our military strategy. It allows us to capture enemies without killing them, then study them to understand their weaknesses." "How did you learn to build this weapon?" Amy asked, trying to keep them talking, while she recovered from the pain. "We did not build it," Korath admitted. "We discovered it on a dead world in our home system. The original builders were gone, but their technology remained. We improved it over many generations. This was interesting information. The Vorthak had not invented their most powerful weapon. They had found it and copied it. The neural disruptor gave us the power to build our empire," Korath continued. "Before we found it, we were just another species struggling to survive. After we mastered it, we became conquerors." "What happens when you find a species you cannot conquer?" Amy asked. Korath's red eyes narrowed. "That has never happened until now. Zeth was still studying the brain scans on his screen. I believe I understand the mechanism, he said. Her neural resistance is not just genetic. It is adaptive. Each exposure to the disruptor is making her more resistant. What do you mean? Korath demanded. Her brain is learning to compensate for the disruption. See these new neural connections forming? They are creating alternate pathways for consciousness to maintain itself during disruptor exposure. Amy felt a chill of excitement. Her brain was actually getting better at fighting off their weapon. Each time they used it on her, she became more immune. This is impossible, Korath said. Biological adaptation does not work that quickly. Perhaps not for most species, Zeth replied. But humans may be different. They are known to be highly adaptive. This individual may represent an extreme example of human adaptability. Korath turned back to Amy. Is this common among your people? This neural resistance? Amy thought quickly. Should she tell them the truth? That she was probably unusual, even among humans? Or should she let them think all humans might be like her? I do not know, she said finally. You would have to test more of us to find out. This was not exactly a lie. She did not know for certain if other humans might have similar resistance, but she suspected she was unusual. We will test your crew members with higher power settings, Korath decided. If they show similar adaptation, we will need to revise our invasion plans. Leave them alone, Amy said quickly. Test me instead. I am clearly the best subject for your experiments. Korath studied her face. You are trying to protect them. How noble. But we will test whoever provides the most useful data. Amy realized she had made a mistake. By trying to protect her crew, she had shown that she cared about them. Now Korath could use them as leverage against her. However, Korath continued, you may be right that you are the best subject. Your resistance is clearly the strongest. We will focus on understanding your specific condition first. Over the next several hours, they ran many different tests on Amy. They scanned her brain, took samples of her blood, and tested her reactions to different frequencies of neural disruption. Through it all, Amy stayed conscious and aware. She learned that the Vorthak Empire controlled hundreds of worlds and billions of slaves. Their military was built around fast conquest using neural disruptors, followed by detailed study of each species to understand how to control them most efficiently. But Amy also noticed something important. The Vorthak scientists were confused by her resistance. They had built their entire understanding of biology around the idea that neural disruption was universally effective. Her immunity challenged their basic assumptions about how brains worked. When they finally took her back to her cell, Amy had a lot to think about. She was becoming more resistant to their weapon with each exposure. Her brain was literally adapting to fight off their technology. But more importantly, she had seen doubt in their eyes. For the first time in their history of conquest, the Vorthak had found something they could not easily understand or control. Amy lay on her metal bed and smiled in the darkness. She was still a prisoner, and Earth was still in danger. But now, she knew something the Vorthak did not yet realize. Their greatest weapon might also be their greatest weakness, and if she could figure out how to use her immunity properly, she might be able to turn their own technology against them. The question was, how long did she have before they invaded Earth? And could she find a way to escape and warn her people? In time? Amy closed her eyes and tried to rest. She had a feeling that her real test was still coming. Amy woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights were flashing in her cell, and she could hear Vorthak voices shouting in their grinding language throughout the ship. Something was wrong. Her cell door opened, and Mindseeker Korath rushed in with 4 soldiers. He looked angry and worried. What did you do? He demanded. I have been locked in this cell, Amy said. What could I do? One of our scout ships reported that a human fleet is approaching this sector. How did they find us? Amy tried to hide her excitement. Earth had sent ships to look for them. Her people had not given up. Maybe humans are better at tracking than you thought, she said. Korath grabbed her arm roughly and pulled her from the cell. You will help us understand human military tactics. If you cooperate, Your crew will not be harmed. They dragged her through corridors filled with rushing Vorthak soldiers. The ship felt different now, tense and worried instead of confident. Amy had never seen the aliens show fear before. They reached what looked like the bridge of the ship. It was a large room with many screens and control stations. Through a huge window, Amy could see stars and empty space, but on the screens she could see dots that were getting closer. 12 human vessels, reported a Vorthak officer. They are smaller than our ship, but moving in coordinated formation. Can we outrun them? Asked another alien who wore more decorations on his armor. Amy guessed he was the ship's captain. Yes, War Prime Zealoth, but they will follow us, and if they escape, they will report our location to more human ships. Korath pushed Amy toward the main screen. Tell us their weaknesses. How do we defeat them quickly? Amy studied the display. She could recognize the ship designs. They were Earth Defense Force cruisers. Good ships with good crews. But they had no idea what they were facing. I will not help you kill my own people, she said. Then you will watch them die, Korath replied. He turned to War Prime Zealoth. Use neural disruptors on maximum range. Disable their crews and capture their ships. Amy felt panic rising in her chest. The human ships had no protection against neural disruptors. The Vorthak could knock out every crew member from a distance and then board the ships easily. Wait, she said quickly. What if the disruptors do not work on them either? Korath stared at her. You said you did not know if your resistance was common among humans. I said I did not know for certain. But what if it is? What if you waste time trying to disable them and it fails? She was lying, but she had to try something to protect the human fleet. War Prime Zealoth studied her with his glowing red eyes. You are trying to deceive us, but we will test this anyway. Fire neural disruptors at the lead ship. Amy watched in horror as blue beams shot out from the Vorthak vessel toward the approaching human fleet. The beams hit the lead cruiser and nothing happened. The ship continued on its course. Impossible, breathed Korath. Try again with more power. More blue beams fired. Again, no effect on the human ships. Amy could hardly believe it. Were humans naturally immune to neural disruptors? Or was something else happening? All human ships are maintaining formation, reported the Vorthak officer. No signs of crew disruption. War Prime Zealoth turned to Korath with rage in his eyes. You told me only this one human had resistance to our weapons. She was the only one we tested, Korath said defensively. The others on her crew showed normal susceptibility. Amy suddenly understood. The neural disruptors worked fine on unconscious humans, like her crew had been when first captured. But awake, alert humans and ships with their own electrical systems might be naturally protected. Fire conventional weapons, ordered Zealoth. Destroy them before they can report back to their homeworld. Red beams shot out from the Vorthak ship, but the human cruisers were ready. They scattered in different directions and returned fire with their own weapons. Amy watched the battle with mixed feelings. She was proud of how well the human ships were fighting, but she was also worried they would be destroyed. The Vorthak ship was much larger and had stronger weapons. Damage to Sections 7 and 12, reported a Vorthak officer. Human weapons are more effective than expected. How is this possible? Zealoth demanded. Their technology is supposed to be primitive. Amy smiled. Maybe you do not know humans as well as you thought. During the fighting, no one was paying attention to her. She was standing near a control station that had neural disruptor controls. If she could get to it, an explosion rocked the Vorthak ship as human missiles found their target. Several aliens fell down and Amy used the confusion to move toward the control station. She grabbed a small neural disruptor weapon that was lying on the console. It was the same type Korath had used on her many times, but now she had a theory about how it really worked. Human ships are targeting our weapon systems, called out an officer. Return fire, destroy them all, Zealoth shouted. Amy pointed the neural disruptor at the nearest Vorthak soldier and pressed the trigger. Blue light shot out and hit the alien. He immediately collapsed, unconscious. The other aliens turned toward her in shock. She fired again, dropping another soldier. The weapon worked perfectly on the Vorthak. Impossible, Korath gasped. You cannot use our own weapons against us. But Amy was already firing at more targets. Alien after alien fell as the neural disruptor knocked them unconscious. The humans were not just immune to the weapon, they could use it effectively against its creators. "Stop her!" Zealith roared, pulling out his own weapon. Amy dove behind a control console as alien weapons fire shot over her head. She had caused chaos on the bridge, but there were still too many of them. The neural disruptor affects electrical patterns. "In the brain," she called out. "Human brains must work differently than yours. We are immune to it, but you are not immune to us using it on you." More explosions rocked the ship. The human fleet was winning the battle outside. Amy heard footsteps, approaching her hiding place. She waited until she could see alien feet, then rolled out and fired. 2 more Vorthak fell unconscious. But Zealith was behind her now. She turned to see him pointing a weapon at her head. Not a neural disruptor, but something that would kill her. "Surrender or I will execute you now," he growled. Amy looked around the bridge. Half the Vorthak crew was unconscious. The others were divided between fighting the human ships and watching her. "If you kill me, you will never understand how humans can resist your weapons," she said. "Your empire is built on neural disruptors. What happens when you meet a species that is immune to them?" Zealith hesitated. She could see the doubt in his eyes. "Besides," Amy continued, looking at the main screen, "I think it is too late for you anyway." The human fleet had destroyed most of the Vorthak ship's weapons. Now they were moving in for capture instead of destruction. They had realized this was an opportunity to study alien technology. "War Prime," called an officer. "They are demanding our surrender. Our weapons are offline and our engines are damaged." Zealith looked around his ruined bridge. His empire's greatest weapon had failed completely against humans. His powerful ship was defeated by smaller human vessels. Everything the Vorthak believed about their superiority was being proven wrong. Amy stood up slowly, still holding the neural disruptor. "You wanted to conquer Earth because you thought we were weak, but maybe you should have studied us more carefully first." The truth was finally clear. Humans were not just immune to neural disruptors. They could turn the weapons against their creators. The technology that had built the Vorthak Empire would be useless against humanity, and now a human fleet knew where to find them. War Prime Zealith stared at Amy with his glowing red eyes. Around them, his bridge crew lay unconscious from the neural disruptor she had turned against them. The sounds of battle had stopped outside. The human fleet had won. "This cannot be happening," Zealith said, more to himself than to Amy. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 17 systems. We do not lose to primitive species." Amy kept the neural disruptor pointed at him. "Maybe you are not as superior as you thought." The communications station made a beeping sound. A voice came through speaking English with a slight accent Amy recognized as German. "Vorthak vessel, this is Admiral Hans Muller of the Earth Defense Force. Your weapons are disabled and your engines are damaged. Surrender now and your crew will not be harmed." Zealith looked at Amy with hatred. "You knew they were coming. You planned this." "I had no way to contact them," Amy said truthfully. "But I hoped Earth would send someone to look for us when we did not report back." "This changes nothing," Zealith snarled. "Even if you defeat this ship, the Vorthak Empire has thousands of vessels. Your world will still fall," Amy smiled. "Will it? Your entire military is built around neural disruptors. What happens when all your enemies are immune to your main weapon?" For the first time, Amy saw real fear in the alien's eyes. Zealith was beginning to understand what human immunity to neural disruptors really meant for his empire. The bridge door opened, and more Vorthak soldiers rushed in. Amy quickly fired the neural disruptor at them, dropping 3 aliens before the others could react. But there were too many of them now. "Take her alive," Zealith ordered. "She is our only source of information about human resistance." The soldiers moved carefully toward Amy. She fired again, hitting one more alien, but then other soldiers tackled her from behind. The neural disruptor flew from her hands as she hit the floor. "Foolish human," Zealith said, standing over her. "Did you think you could defeat an entire ship by yourself?" Amy struggled against the soldiers holding her. I do not have to defeat your ship, my people will do that. As if her words were a signal, the lights went out. Emergency power came on a few seconds later, but everything was dimmer now. What is happening? Zelith demanded. Human boarding parties have reached our power core, reported an officer who had just regained consciousness. They are systematically disabling our systems. How did they board us so quickly? They used some kind of cutting beam to make holes in our hull. Their soldiers came through wearing spacesuits. Amy felt proud of her people. The Earth Defense Force was well-trained and experienced. They might not have advanced alien technology, but they knew how to fight smart. More explosions echoed through the ship. The human boarding parties were working their way toward the bridge. We must escape, Korath said, stumbling onto the bridge. He looked injured, and his long coat was torn. The humans are using our own neural disruptors against our crew. Everywhere they go, our soldiers fall unconscious. Zelith grabbed Amy and pulled her to her feet. Then she comes with us. We will use her as a hostage. That will not work, Amy said. Human military doctrine does not allow negotiating with hostage takers. But Zelith was already pulling her toward a door at the back of the bridge. Several soldiers followed them into a corridor that Amy had not seen before. They ran through the ship as explosions and weapon fire echoed around them. Amy could hear human voices shouting tactical commands in English. Her people were winning. Zelith led them to a small room filled with escape pods. We will take her to the homeworld, he told his soldiers. The High Command must learn about human neural immunity before they launch the invasion. The invasion was supposed to begin in 2 weeks, Korath said. If we do not report back, they will proceed as planned, Zelith finished, unless we warn them about the humans' resistance to our weapons. Amy felt a chill of fear. She had been so focused on escaping that she had not thought about what would happen next. Even if the Vorthak on this ship were defeated, their empire would still try to invade Earth. Get in the pod, Zelith ordered, pushing Amy toward one of the escape vehicles. But before they could reach it, the door exploded inward. 3 humans in combat armor rushed into the room, holding weapons and neural disruptors they had taken from unconscious Vorthak soldiers. Drop your weapons, shouted the lead soldier in English. Zelith immediately grabbed Amy and held her in front of him like a shield. Stay back or I kill the human. The human soldiers aimed carefully but did not fire. Amy could see their faces through their helmet visors. They looked professional and determined. My name is Commander Amy Rodriguez, Amy called out. These aliens are planning to invade Earth. Do not let them escape. We know who you are, Commander, said the lead soldier. We have been looking for your ship for 3 weeks. Are you injured? I am fine. But my crew, we found them. They are alive and being evacuated to our medical ship. Amy felt relief flood through her. Her people were safe. Enough talking, Zelith snarled. He pressed his weapon against Amy's head. Move away from the door or she dies. But Amy had been thinking during their escape through the ship. She knew something that Zelith did not realize. The neural disruptor, she said loudly. Use it on all of them at once. What? Asked the human soldier. Their weapon that knocks people unconscious. It does not work on humans, but it works perfectly on them. Use it on all the aliens in this room. The lead soldier raised a captured neural disruptor and fired it at maximum power. Blue light filled the room. Amy felt the familiar pain in her head, but she stayed conscious. Zelith and all his soldiers immediately collapsed, unconscious. The weapon that had built their empire had failed them completely. Amy stepped away from Zelith's unconscious form and walked toward the human soldiers. Commander Rodriguez, said the lead soldier, removing his helmet to reveal a young face with blue eyes. I am Lieutenant Kevin Brooks. Are you ready to go home? More than ready, Amy replied. But first, we need to warn Earth about the invasion. These aliens have an empire with thousands of ships. They were planning to attack in 2 weeks. Our fleet intercepted their long-range communications, Brooks said. We know about the invasion threat. That is why Admiral Muller sent so many ships to find you. Did you learn anything useful from their ship? Brooks smiled. We learned that their main weapon does not work on humans at all, and we learned that We can use it against them very effectively. This changes everything about how we will defend Earth. Amy nodded. The Vorthak had built their empire on the assumption that neural disruptors would always work. They had never faced an enemy that was immune to their greatest weapon. What happens now? She asked as they walked toward the door. Now we take some of these aliens back to Earth for study. We capture as many of their ships as possible. And we prepare to show the Vorthak Empire what happens when they try to conquer humanity. Amy looked back at War Prime Zelith's unconscious form. When he woke up, he would find himself a prisoner instead of a conqueror. His empire's greatest advantage had become their greatest weakness. Their weapon disarmed her, Amy said quietly, remembering the title of her ordeal. What? Asked Brooks. Nothing. Just thinking about irony. Amy smiled as they left the room. Let's go home and get ready for war. I have a feeling the Vorthak Empire is about to learn that humans do not make good slaves. As they walked through, corridors filled with unconscious aliens and victorious human soldiers, Amy thought about what would happen when Earth used captured neural disruptors against the Vorthak invasion fleet. The aliens had created the perfect weapon to defeat themselves. The war was far from over. But for the first time since her capture, Amy was confident that humanity would win. The Vorthak had made a fatal error in judgment. They had tried to conquer the one species in the galaxy that was immune to the weapon that made their empire possible. And when War Prime Zelith finally woke up in a human prison cell, Amy's determined eyes would be the last thing he remembered from his days as a free alien. The hunter had become the hunted. The weapon that was supposed to disarm her had instead disarmed an entire empire.